Yeah, I think we can start now. Yeah. I think my video is off.
Yeah, I think we can start, Gaurav.
Yeah. I think my video, just a minute. I think my video is off right now.
Yeah, your video is not coming on. 1 second. Are you able to start it?
No, it's coming that just 1 minute.
Sure. Take it.
You can, because the host has stopped it. Just try once, otherwise I will just start away with the without the video.
Yeah, 1 second.
In participation, when you click participants, I think there is a window where it has a video next to it.
1 second. Right.
Okay, I will start anyways.
Yeah, I think this is going to take some time anyway. Yeah.
No problem. Hello, good evening, everybody. We have got around 250 registrations. So I think almost around 100 have joined. But since it's 4 o'clock, let's all begin. Welcome. I'm Gaurav Dharkar, Chairman of IT and Seminar Committee at NEMA. And it gives us immense pleasure to welcome you for the webinar on protecting your bottom line by Bissol India Financial Services Private Limited in association with NEMA. Today, this webinar will help complement RBI measures for MSMEs and to understand the tools available to streamline banking, FX and interest rates during this catastrophic slowdown caused by COVID-19. Majorly, this webinar will include economic outlook, RBI measures during COVID-19, the currency outlook and the benefits through banking, FX, interest rates, along with some case studies. The speaker for today is Advait Venkatachalam, Director of Bissol Financial Services Private Limited. So just to give you a brief for people who are new to NEMA, NEMA, that is Nashik Industries and Manufacturers Association, is the apex body representing 3,000 plus member industries of Nashik region. Established in 1971 to attract and felicitate industries in Nashik, NEMA has played a pivotal role in the industrial growth. Today, NEMA has gone beyond that role and acts as an influencer. Along with our President, Mr. Shashikant Jadhav, and our Honorable General Secretary, Mr. Tushar Chavan, I, Gaurav Dharkar, the Chairman of IT and Seminar Committee of NEMA, welcome you all. Over to you, Advait.
Thank you. Thanks, Gaurav. I hope that the sound and video quality is fine for everyone out there.
Yeah.
I'll just start. Before I start, I just like to thank NEMA, thank Mr. Shashikant Jadhav, Mr. Tushar Chavan, and Mr. Gaurav Dharkar personally for the opportunity to have held this webinar to educate all its members out there about what best is possible in this scenario. Currently, we all know that we are in the middle of COVID-19 and how now is the time, now that the initial shock is wearing off, it's now the time to realize how best we can fight. And how best we can fight is to survive and to get better in what we're doing. So I thank you, NEMA, for this opportunity, and let's dive right in. Right, so the topic for today is called protecting your bottom line. I don't think it gets any simpler than that in terms of what we are trying to aim for over here. We will be covering a few diverse topics today. One of initially we'll do it in 3 lots. The first lot we will talk about the general aspect of where things stand today globally as well as in India. We will be covering. This is something that a lot of people have shown immense interest in. We also feel this is one section that a lot of people should get, more, especially MSMEs, should get more educated in, and that will be our second section, where we'll be talking about what are the various benefit schemes that the RBI has or the government has provided or is currently providing, and what is it that the government and the RBI has spoken about in recent days. So I mean, we won't be covering it in too much in detail because it's far too in-depth a topic to cover even in a 1.5 hour webinar. But I will try and cover at least some of the major ones and existing, pre-existing as well as new ones. And then we'll go into the third section, which is how you can look at saving money in your existing setup through FX, through foreign exchange for your exports and imports, through interest rate products, all of which comes under the banking sector, which is more of an internal review to what we can do better within our organization. So let's start. I won't, again, for the purpose of having to cover quite a lot of ground today, I won't get into too much detail regarding the introduction. I'll just let you know, my name is Advait Venkatachalam. I'm the director of BISOL India Financial Services, and we work as consultants in the area of foreign exchange and interest rate risk management, project financing, and MSME consulting. We also are a part of BISOL India Services, which is a 23-year-old group with more than 300, serving more than 300 corporate clients across the country. So, to cover an overview of the times that we're in. So, as of right now, this is, I think this is my 6th or 7th webinar I've been conducting since we are in lockdown for various different organizations, institutes, and otherwise. And this is the one figure that always makes me sad. Unfortunately, it keeps going up, and I have to keep giving showing higher figures in this. But that's the world we're in right now. So over 54 lakh cases worldwide, over 21 lakh that have recovered, and 3.45 lakh deaths so far from COVID-19. From an economic perspective, the US economy has already in the last 2 months shrunk by 4.8%. The European economy is expected to shrink by 7.5% in 2020 alone. The fight that has been going on and off between US and China, which is now intensifying, I would say war of words that have been intensifying, could cause, and it could, or it is already showing a sign of a sense of nationalism in both countries, where they feel that their way is the right way. But it will definitely cause significantly decreased economics globally. You'll see a lot less in terms of global business going forward because of this. The IMF has already contracted its expectations for 2020 by 3% in global growth. Talking about India now, of course, our figures are much lower than a number of other countries. I would say, yes, that is partially because of the lockdown, but let's not get into the rights and wrongs. We are where we are today. Over 1.38 lakh cases found nationwide, 57,000 people who have recovered already, which is a very good sign. Around over 4,000 people that have died so far from COVID-19, unfortunately. So economic recovery in India especially is going to depend quite heavily on the availability of liquidity to corporates, which is again one of the reasons why we are covering that section on MSMEs and giving it a little extra weightage today, because I believe that is the need of the hour and something that most corporates or MSMEs in today's time are going to be interested in. Growth, we all are aware. Our RBI Governor Shashikanta Das already mentioned that growth is going to go to negative figures this year. We were hoping for it to be in maybe 0.91, 1.5 levels, but no, I think it is expected that it is going to drop to negative levels. The reverse migration that we have seen over the last couple of months since lockdown, it is going to cause a shortage in the workforce and the work supply that we have. There is going to be some, if not major, because this is semi-skilled to not skilled labor, there's going to be some level of basic re-education that is going to be required for the people who step into their shoes, and that is expected to cause some kind of cost in the days to come. Certain industries like tourism, hospitality, F&B, these are heavily distressed already. They are going to continue to be so. A number of them might have to permanently close. This is again purely the reality of the situation. People are not going to want to go out that much. They are not going to travel that much unless it is absolutely necessary. My only one couple of points I left to mention in the past. I'll take all the Q&As at the end of the session. I'll keep it for a 60 to 70 minute to end the entire session. After which I'll ensure that the Q&As are answered. I'll try and keep it to the more generic Q&As that will help everyone involved. Any other Q&As that I don't have the time to complete or might be more particular in nature, I promise you that I will reply to each and every one of them within 48 hours of the session ending. Now, getting into the second section, which is regarding MSMEs. So what in the past, I think the RBI has come in now almost 3 times since the lockdown to make announcements for liquidity for the corporates in general. Let's just cover quickly, very, very quickly, because I know everyone's been listening to this in the news and in the reading the news online for quite a few days. So I'll just cover this quickly. Initially, a 3-month pause was called on all term loan repayments, that is principal plus interest, and on interest on working capital, which was supposed to be due at the end of 3 months in a bullet repayment. The repo rate cut was cut from 5.15 to 4.4. This was in the first announcement. The reverse repo rate was cut from 4.9 to 3.75. This happened in a number of in 2 different announcements. The CRR was cut from 4% to 3% to offer more liquidity. We saw TLTRO 1 and 2 this was for liquidity infusion, which has brought in close to about 1.5 lakh crores. TLTRO 2 was for mainly aimed at NBFCs. The first tranche was aimed more for banks directly. The total liquidity infusion up to, I would say, up to the previous announcement perhaps, was to the tune of 4.74 lakh crores by the RBI. Now, the third leg of the RBI announcements, which were made just towards the end of last week. The moratorium on the loan repayments, the EMIs, was extended from 3 months to 6 months. The interest on working capital that was provided for 3 months was also extended, and it was mentioned that the interest that is repayable at the end of 6 months could be converted into a funded interest term loan, which had to be repaid by the end of March 2021. The repo rate was cut again from 4.4 to 4%, again to increase liquidity. The reverse repo rate cut was reduced from 3.75 to 3.5. This was again to discourage banks to park funds with the RBI and rather utilize those funds in the markets. We are seeing a certain sluggishness with the reverse repo rate cut decision, because not with the decision per se, but with banks changing their modes to shift to corporates rather than park their funds even at lower interests with the RBI. There is certain risk aversion there. Collateral free loans. Again, I'm just mentioning these here because I will be going a little more, I will discuss this a little more further ahead. So collateral free loans under the ECLGS scheme which will be offered till October 2020. The Provident Fund contributions have been reduced, and a temporary fiscal support has been given for employee contribution for a few months. Equity funding by MSME fund of funds, again, through SIDBI MSME fund of funds for certain viable companies that are looking for equity funding, this is going to be provided. Pre and post shipment finance for exporters, the export credit has been increased from 12 months to 15 months. This is again to help with liquidity, help with cash flows for companies so that they have a little more breathing space. Similarly, for importers, for trade import payments, the period has been extended from 6 months going up to 12 months for making payments on their trade imports. Now, this is, I think, the section that a number of you will be interested in. There are, as of today, more than 30 benefits schemes that we can talk about for MSMEs that the government of India at various levels, state and central, has provided. I cannot, like I mentioned, I cannot possibly go into every last one of them because it is they are too diverse, too in-depth a topic for me to to complete within this time frame. So I would suggest you could for you all to go visit msme.gov.in. It has all the details that you require. You could always get in touch with me as well for any further information. My details will be provided at the end, but I won't go too much into detail. I will talk about a few of them that are quite important, according to me, quite important, and could help a large number of corporates here. So we begin with Sampark. Sampark is a job portal to help MSMEs find skilled, semi-skilled labor for people straight out of college, straight out of 14 particular institutes that will help in manufacturing and other allied industries. You have SIDBI, of course, which is investing directly in MSMEs, which we mentioned earlier, the fund of funds that that SIDBI will be in charge of. IP support. A number of companies we see today don't, especially MSMEs, don't go in for intellectual property registration, patent registration, because of the cost involved. So the government has given a subsidy of 50% for this. Apart from this, even companies that are MSMEs that are looking for going in for any form of international trade fairs, things like that, whether in India or abroad, there is a certain amount of money given by the government to which is reimbursed for your travel and other purposes. So that is something again to look into. CLCS, which is the Credit Linked Capital Subsidy for any form of technology upgradation. Particularly, I mentioned here technology upgradation. The government is giving out subsidies to MSMEs so that they have a better edge in the marketplace. The CGD MSE, these are collateral-free loans that the government is willing to give up to an amount of 100 lakhs or 1 crore to MSMEs in particular. And if you are a registered MSME, there is an interest benefit that you can take of 1%. So this is something again that is something we at least notice a large number of corporates not taking advantage of, large number of MSMEs not taking advantage of, is the interest benefit of 1% that can be availed. Samadhan, which is a portal for delayed payment registration and for arbitration. So for any MSMEs where there has been a delay in your customer paying you, and this is a portal where you can register your delayed payment, where arbitration will be taken up, and there is a certain certainty of settlement within a particular time frame. So Samban, portal for procurement. So again, there's two sections to it. One is this is a common portal set up by the government for procurement of for various organizations. So there could be other MSMEs, other corporates that could come in and procure from there, other customers, future customers who could procure your products from there. Also, it has become it has been made compulsory by the central government that all CPSEs have to buy at least 20% of all their purchases through registered MSMEs. So this is something that a large number of MSMEs here should consider looking into, because this could be helpful to a large number of people. Threads. So Threads is another platform I won't go into too much detail into, simply because it's too large a subject. But to put it mildly, Threads is an online platform where your trade receivables of MSMEs can be uploaded. Now, I'll give you an example. If you are a vendor for a Mahindra and Mahindra, you can upload your the trade receivables, your invoices, and you can, as long as Mahindra and Mahindra accepts that yes, this is due, and we are due to pay this to the vendor, there is no form of, there's no issues over there. There are a number of financial institutions that will finance this for you directly. So it's a form of discounting, which is particularly only for MSMEs. So this, and it has this has seen huge traction in the last 2-3 years since it was launched. I don't have the exact figure with me right now. It's about a few thousand crores worth of discounting that has happened on these platforms with very, very good, very competitive interest rates. Interest subvention. Now again, for exporters over here, there is a direct 5% subvention on any export packing credit that you avail in INR, especially for MSMEs, where you get a direct discount of 5%. So these are just a few of the major ones. Like I said, there are over 30 of them. a number of them might be for particular industries. So I'm not putting those in, so that this table will be helpful for everyone. So what is it that has been announced by the RBI, by the government in recent times? I'll get in there are a few Q&As here. I'll get into these after we are done with the presentation. So what is it that has been announced in the last few days? So collateral free loans to MSMEs that have, they have set up a corpus of over 3 lakh crores for this. This in particular is important because this is going to be very helpful. There are a couple of criteria which we'll get to in the next slide. This is something in the short term which will be helpful to a large number of MSMEs. A new definition of MSME altogether. This also includes a large set of, I would say, bigger organizations that can fall under the MSME gamut now. The MSME Fund of Funds by SIDBI, which is going to have an equity infusion in MSMEs, they have a budget of over 50,000 crores for the same. So global tenders are now prohibited for amounts for tenders less than 200 crores. This will only be open to Indian organizations. No more global tenders to be accepted. So the government and all CPSE to release MSME receivables within 45 days. Now this is something that they have promised. We would love to see this and hear from our all of you all out there that this is happening. We are hearing of it happening to some of our clients where they are getting a large chunk of their receivables that are stuck with the government and with CPSEs getting released sooner than they had originally expected. But again, this is just a small ray of sunshine. Let's hope that this continues in a big way to all of you. There's been an amendment in the IBC. That's the, I'll go into detail of this later. And subordinate debt to NPAs or stressed assets is going to be provided. They have a separate amount of funding kept aside, particularly for this, for MSMEs, stressed MSMEs. So I'm going into a couple of FAQs because this is something that I feel, again, a large number of you all, it will clear certain doubts for a number of people over here. Is it necessary to register as an MSME? It might not be necessary to register for an MSME, but I would always suggest it is better to register as an MSME simply because it's a more streamlined process to take advantage of all the benefits that are provided by the government. What are the conditions for collateral-free loans for MSMEs? Right. So, like I mentioned in the previous slide, there are certain conditions that the government has mentioned here. Those conditions are that your turnover should be less than 100 crores. Your outstanding should be less than 25 crores, and 20% of your outstanding as on Feb end would be provided as a collateral-free loan by the banks. So another point, I think I cover that next. Okay. Another point over here that I mentioned is the condition for a collateral-free loan is that there's a cap by the set by the government for banks at 9.25% and for NBFCs at 14.25%. So is interest subvention on exports a refund? No. So interest subvention on exports is not a refund. Based on certain certain forms that are filled and provided to the banker at the time of availment of the export credit or packing credit, the amount is reduced as a discount, right? Which is top-ended. Is there a cap? I've just answered it. Is there a cap on interest rates? Yes, for banks at 9.25 and for NBFCs at 14.25. Are rate cuts going to reach the MSMEs in time? Now, again, I might not be the judge of this answer, but I will mention over here that we are already seeing a trickle-down effect happening, if not a downpour, where banks are passing on certain benefits. We are seeing at least the public sector banks to begin with pass on some level of benefit. In case of private sector banks, this is probably taking a little longer, but yes, there will be a trickle down effect with the quantum of liquidity that the government has brought in. It is only a matter of time. Even the banks cannot be risk averse forever. In terms of NBFCs, again, I think the response for NBFC liquidity at the end of TLTRO2 was a little lukewarm. So NBFCs with a little more push from the government would be, or the RBI would be in a better position to also start supporting their customers. Now, I'll go into the third section, which is banking, FX, and interest rates. So let's just start with an overview of the major currencies at this point in time, which is the USD-INR. Our expectations are that the USD-INR is expected to range on the lower side at 76.50 and the higher side at 78. This is a short-term range that I'm talking about, not very long-term. The reasons for the same are, of course, the corona-led risk aversion. Markets are a little unsure at this point in time, so there is going to be some upside risk over here. China is looking at devaluing the yuan, this is their fight with the US, which will again weaken the rupee. US-China tensions will continue. This will also this could also lower the rupee further because of risk aversion. The economic data coming out of India has been weak in the last couple of weeks. This will again affect this. We are expecting this. Another reason why the dollar could appreciate. The rate cuts that are happening will lower a lot of could lower some interest in India as a country from abroad in terms of investments when the returns are going to start showing a drastic fall in terms of the bank interest. The RBI is again already showing signs of intervening whenever the rupee is appreciating too much. This is again to ensure that exporters are benefited at this point with a stronger dollar in the days to come, which hopefully will make exports pick up, or it'll make exports more profitable. The Euro INR, we have expectations of it to range between 80.50 and 83. The reasons for this is there have been a fall in cases in the eurozone in COVID-19 cases in the eurozone in the last month or so, which is a good sign. The governments of France and Germany have spoken about packages for economic recovery, which is again a good sign for the eurozone. Oil prices have been weighing on the US dollar. We are expecting the euro to get default benefit of the dollar being a little depressed. Again, on the other side, the US again is still vulnerable. Euro is still vulnerable to China's to a slowdown in China. That could affect the eurozone. Printing of dollars. The printing of dollars will offset risk aversion to some extent. So we could see that also as a reason to be a little wary of in the eurozone. Now to talk about the GBP INR. Our expectations are that the GBP INR will trade in the range of 89.50 to 93. One reason is the number of cases of COVID they are rising. I mean, we don't see the cases reducing. In fact, there is still a continuous rise in the number of cases. That being said, there is uncertainty on the Brexit talks. There is still no clear picture as to when the talks will end. If there is a WTO-led Brexit, whereas the WTO is the decision maker on most of the policies, this could hurt the GBP quite badly. The approved Brexit plan could limit the losses when I say approved Brexit plan is if there is an approved Brexit plan by Prime Minister Johnson, it could limit the losses in the GBP to some extent. Now, let's look at what are the few points that as importers or exporters, what do we need to look at in our in saving through FX. Excuse me for a second. Right. So one of the first points, this is something that I talk about very often when I meet clients, customers, is you have to look at very seriously look at the margins that you pay at the time of conversion. there is no clear RBI policy on how much margin banks should take, how much the banks can walk away with. And 9 out of 10 times when we audit the forex transactions of our customers, we notice that the bank makes more margin than the customer is aware of, or that the customer is not aware that there could be a drastic reduction in these margins. So this is one aspect where we definitely see a huge and immediate. This is something that hits your bottom line on day one when you can negotiate it properly with your bankers. The bankers use a lot of jargon. It's their business to do so. It is our job on this side of the table to try and ensure we get the best deal possible. So this is something that, and this is not even rocket science. It's something that I believe every Indian believes that they are very good at negotiation. We do it from a young age, even with the shopkeepers. So we have to negotiate. Without a negotiation, the banks will not pass on these benefits free. So again, a large number. This is something I hear again from a large number of my customers initially is, we don't follow the markets. We are not in it for, we are in our own business. We are in it for our own business. We are not in it for trading, which is perfectly fine. But the moment you start exports, the moment you start imports on a regular basis, markets and the movements of markets and what direction they follow has become a part of your business. That is no longer like one customer very succinctly put it to me, Bhagwan Bharose. It's not. It is a part of your business. It is something that you have to consider, that you have to look into on a regular basis. You have to see where you're expecting the dollars. And again, I'm not going to go into too much detail over here, but there are ways to follow the markets to see whether the dollar is going up. When I say markets, I mean the currency markets. Whether the dollar is going up, whether the dollar is going down, where is the euro expected to go? Because if there's sudden volatility in the currencies and there is a huge drop or huge rise which is against you, which works against you, that could make a huge opportunity loss in your books. So we don't talk about long-term directional calls, but short-term, 3 to 4 days, 1 week, what best you can get from the markets. Hedging through forward booking to stabilize costs and receivables. Now, hedging, there are a number of ways of hedging a customer's exposure, whether imports or exports. There is forward hedging, there is futures, there is options. I'm not getting into too many of those things. I'm getting into something very simple called forward booking. I'm sure a large number of corporates would have heard of forward booking. And I also know a large number of corporates, again, I talk from my experience over here. In my experience, a large number of corporates who I have met who tell me, others we did it this one time last year, but usme loss ho gaya. So anything, if you do just one time, even if you manufacture your own product only one time in the entire year and don't have the benefit of quantities and ordering and things like that, it is going to be loss making. Forward booking is the same. It is a system. Forward booking is not a one-time contract. It is a system that needs to be adopted. And that system, when done on a regular basis, gives you benefits. And again, forward booking is not here to make you benefits. It's here to make, to make you profits, I should say. It's here to try and ensure that you don't make losses in terms of the cost of the, in terms of the cost that has been put in place in terms of your exchange rates. It's purely there to protect your costing. So forward booking is something that needs to be looked into again by a large number of corporates. So conversion and hedging strategy. We see a large number of corporates again across the country who believe Forex is individual's decision that matters in Forex decision making. We differ on this front. We strongly believe that companies with a sizable exposure to foreign exchange, and when I say sizable, there is no defined term for sizable. I simply mean sizable in terms of whether that the exposure of foreign exchange is sizable to your company's turnover. If it is, anything over 20% of your company's turnover, then the exchange rate is going to play a part, or the variances or volatility in the exchange rates is going to play a part in your bottom line. So which is why a Forex policy becomes important, drafting a Forex policy, setting it up in place. And another benefit of that Forex policy also becomes that operational people have the freedom, have the comfort to take decisions on the currency markets. And on the top management side, it saves a lot of time and energy and bandwidth for the decision makers, top line decision makers, that they do not have to come in on a day-to-day basis to have to come in and make these decisions. So that policy, one time decided and finalized, makes it very simple for the organization to function on a day-to-day basis. So this is on the FX side. Now I'll quickly just go through what the options available to corporates are in terms of financing. We'll look at a few strategies after that in terms of strategies which you might or might not have considered in terms of your foreign exchange and interest rates. Excuse me, I'll just fill some water. It's a fairly dry day today. So we'll break this up into short-term and long-term options for financing. In the short term, for exporters, like I had mentioned in the past as well, you have packing credit, which can be availed in terms of foreign currency and in terms of INR. The INR is where you have the interest subvention benefit, which we will look at in terms of a case study and a strategy in the future slides. But packing credit, even in foreign currency, is a cheaper option, definitely cheaper than your other INR lendings like CC or WCDL. Packing credit, even without the subvention in foreign currency, is a cheaper option. So that is something that you should be, that all exporters, even with a small volume of exports, should be considering. And FCTL, which is a foreign currency term loan, here we are talking about a short-term FCTL, let's say 6 months to 1 year is what we generally mention when we mean short-term. A short-term FCTL is a foreign currency term loan, let's say similar to packing credit, except that it is not open only to exporters, it is open to all. The end use, unlike packing credit, where the end use is supposed to be working capital funding, the end use for an FCTL has not been mentioned, but it does come with a caveat that if you do not have exports, let's say you're an importer or only domestic business, a person with domestic business, there's a very high probability that the banks might ask you to hedge this, which might make it a little more expensive, a proposition, but still cheaper than INR loans. Another benefit at this point in time with foreign currency funding is that while banks are still waiting to see how much they want to pass on in terms of what the government is offered them in terms of liquidity, this becomes a stopgap, short-term fix in terms of shifting to cheaper interest rates till your INR interest rates reduce. A WCDL again is an INR working capital demand loan. This is something that's again in INR terms with a stipulated time period, purely short-term. Suppliers credit is a form of funding for importers. In terms of your imports, especially if it is LC-backed imports, there are ways of discounting this in the country from where you are importing. So this is one option where the rate of interest drops drastically. It is for companies that are regularly importing on an LC basis. This is definitely something that should be looked at. Apart from this, cash credit. Now I've only put cash credit over there as because I wanted to mention this particularly, that cash credit should be the option of last resort. It is a very convenient option, but it does not make it the ideal option. Cash credit should purely be an option of last resort. Any corporate that would like to say that it is financially active, where they are taking decisions proactively and are able to manage cash flows or want to manage cash flows correctly, would be a company that knows how to utilize the 4 products I mentioned above before they get into cash credit, because cash credit is simply a very convenient option where you can pick up and let it go whenever you want without any stress of it. But you also have to pay a higher interest cost based on that. So long term. So in terms of long term, we're talking again over a 1 year period. This is less working capital, more in terms of I know in today's time and age, not too many people are talking about growth or talking in terms of increasing their existing facilities, but it's always good to have some knowledge about this for future requirement. So INR term loans is one form which I think a large number of corporates here would already have been taking loans in that format for quite some time now. Long-term FCTL, again, with INR term loans, please keep in mind that a large number of INR term loans at this point in time, pre-existing term loans, need to be renegotiated with your bankers. Rate of interest are coming down. You might not get the benefit of a 2.5% that has been reduced by banks. It might not be a direct comparison, but you definitely should see, like I said, a trickle-down effect of that, and you should be able to renegotiate. Do not wait for your annual term to come to an end before you negotiate with them. Please start that ASAP. It does not mean banks cannot change interest rates between 1 year that you have already signed with them. They very well can go ahead with the reduction in interest rates. So long-term FCTL generally works in the favor of exporters. We see a number of exporters who are looking at projects where, again, in terms of growth, in terms of additional facilities of production, a long-term FCTL is a good option for INR term loans. From an importers or domestic business perspective, I would not recommend long-term FCTL too much. There could be an element of the interest arbitrage that you get in foreign currency lending getting eaten up in terms of the exchange rate movement. So this is something which non-exporters can consider, but have to consider very, very thoughtfully in terms of how they are going to go about structuring this. And external commercial borrowing, this is generally done by wholly owned subsidiaries of corporates abroad. It becomes I'm sure we have come across a number of cases where we have on the news and other media outlets where we have seen that corporates, individuals abroad in Europe, in the US are seeing negative interest rates, or even if not negative, near negative interest rates. So even a parent company abroad that is holding on to liquid funds, it makes more sense for them to lend that out to their subsidiary in India, where they have some control, at a rate that is higher than what they are receiving abroad at the same in the US or in Europe, and at the same time the rate of interest will be drastically lower than what is available through your banking system in India. So this also, if it is coming from a parent to a wholly owned subsidiary, can be completely non-collateralized. There are ECBs that are also done, long-term external commercial borrowings that are also done where it is not a parent and subsidiary relationship, but through banks abroad on the basis of your financials. This is a slightly long-term perspective option where it takes 3 to 4 months to set up the external commercial borrowing, but that is another option that companies can consider for an interest arbitrage. Of course, apart from these, debt financing and equity financing are options. I'm not going into too much into depth in that. Again, these two are topics. Bonds and shares are topics that will take another 3 hours each if I go into that. So this is just so that you know what options are there. And also, I have included the debt financing and equity financing here so that people understand that this is a long-term, well thought out process that we need to consider before we get into these options, rather than them being considered in terms of short-term. Now, a few strategies for exporters and importers to consider. This is, I think, a large number of these strategies will be more for companies that export and import rather than for domestic sales. So, cyclical hedging. We spoke about forward booking a few minutes back. I also spoke about where a number of customers always raise the topic that they hedged one time and they face losses in that one hedge. So again, there are various factors that affect the currency markets, various factors that affect our decision making. So it's not always that if a one-off hedge will work out in our favor. So when we talk about cyclical hedging, we talk about booking forward contracts on a cyclical basis. I'm sure a number of companies are already doing this, but where it becomes important is where the trigger for each round of forward booking or hedging takes place, which should not be decision or arbitrary decision based, but based on certain criteria or factors within the related to the currency markets. So the cyclical hedging also ensures that you're hedging. Let's say, I'm giving an example. In Jan, you hedge for April. In Feb, you hedge for May. In March, you hedge for June. So you're hedging on a constant basis. You're getting advantage of a certain amount of forward premium. So which from an exporter's perspective is a good thing. From an importer's perspective, as long as the cyclical hedging is done for a shorter period of, let's say, 1-2 month cycle, will also ensure that the costs do not rise very high in terms of forward premiums. Now, hedging in tranches. A benefit of hedging in tranches. Now, when we recommend to our customers to hedge, we generally tell them to book forwards in tranches of anywhere between 3 to 5. We ensure that we hedge, let's say, in case of, let's say, 3 to 4 tranches, we tell them to hedge 2 to 3 of those tranches, and the last tranche always to be left open to the market. So if the market is going to our benefit, we get advantage of that. If it is going against us as an importer or an exporter, if it is going against us, we get the advantage that we average out with the other 3 legs that we have, the other 3 tranches, which we have already hedged. So this ensures that you don't have to face a really falling market. At the same time, you don't have to take a hit if the market goes against you either, drastically. So a PC INR forward arbitrage. This is quite important for any company that has exports. So I would recommend that this is. I'll take a few. Please don't mind, but I'll take a few extra minutes on this topic. Any companies that have exports, the government has already, like I mentioned in the past, in terms of the interest subvention scheme that the government came out with. There is for a large number of capital intensive and labor intensive industries out there. The government has come up a few years back with the interest subvention scheme, where all corporates that have a certain HS code, customs HS code, are eligible to this interest arbitrage, where large corporates get a benefit of 3%, an instant discount or reduction of interest of 3%, and MSMEs get that benefit of up to 5% for the entire volume of exports you have in those particular HS codes. You can get in touch with me in terms of what HS codes they are. I'd be more than happy to help you out with telling you whether they do fall under that particular category or they don't fall under that. What we recommend to a number of customers over here is, without going into too much detail, is to avail the packing credit in INR for your export receivables, which, for example, in today's time would be at, let's say, even without a government benefit of reduction of interest and all that, at, let's say, 9%. The 9% packing credit with a 5% arbitrage to MSMEs, or a 5% subvention for MSMEs, your interest cost becomes 4%. The same time, when you're availing the loan in INR, the packing credit in INR is when the subvention is available. The moment that is done, at the time of repayment of this loan, let's say 3 months, 6 months down the line, when your receivables come in foreign currency, and those need to be converted to INR again. So we recommend customers that the day the packing credit is availed, the same day receivables are also, the forwards are booked for the receivables, where as an exporter, you receive 4 to 4.5% in terms of forward premium. This will ensure that net, you have an interest cost of 4% and you receive forward premium of 4%. So net, it would ensure that your cost of funding would go to 0 or close to 0. Now, I know this doesn't sound very believable. It is true. We have done this for a number of customers in the past. The only thing that we need to look at is whether we fall under the criteria for the arbitrage, or we fall under the interest subvention criteria. So import-export arbitrage hedging. A number of companies that we, again, I apologize, I'm going to talk from my personal experiences, because we come across a number of companies that where our experience is also but from. So a number of the clients we meet say we have X amount of imports and X amount of exports, and it's the same. So we just have a natural hedge. Our export pay for our imports, we don't convert anything. So even over here, this is something that is for companies that with both imports and exports that are looking for a slightly bigger, or like, let's say, a slightly bigger chunk of profitability out of the situation without any risk. We recommend to our customers to hedge both legs separately, with import being hedged for 1 to 2 months and exports being hedged through by way of forward booking for 5 to 6 months. Now, what happens over here is your import leg forward premium will cost you, let's say on the dollar, for example, will cost you forward premium of anywhere between 40 to 50 paise. The export leg, you're booking a forward contract for, let's say, 5 to 6 months. You will receive on average at least 1.5 rupees in forward premium. So on one side, with the same amount of imports as exports, you are paying 50 paisa in premium, and the other side you are receiving. Your spot rate or the exchange rate is the same in both cases because you're doing both at the same time. The difference is the 1 rupee premium that you receive for your export hedges. That premium becomes an extra profitability for the company. Again, this sounds a little complicated. It is not. Again, something that if you get in touch with me, I can tell you how to go about it step by step. I won't confuse by going into too much detail here. So we'll go into the case studies. I have two case studies today. The first one in terms of exchange rates and how the various details I discussed with you, or most of the details I discussed with you right now, how they've come into play. And the second case study will be on the interest, the PC-INR arbitrage or interest subvention benefit that we can avail. So the first case study is of an engineering company that had which had pending import payables. It had to repay 1.2 million euro to its parent company based in Europe. The parent had decided that they would provide an ECB or an external commercial borrowing to its subsidiary in India so that they could clear all these imports. They were imports that were pending due for let's say a period of more than 1 year, and they were looking at getting these cleared. So when at this point in time, when we spoke to the customer, and the customer saw that we noticed that the bank was charging an exchange margin on every euro converted. The margin being charged was 1 rupee 40 paise. And so that here, just to understand the situation, there would be 1.2 million euro, which would be converted from euro to INR, and 1 rupee 40 paise per euro being charged. And the import payables would be done with the received INR. And again, that conversion would happen with 1 rupee 40 paise being charged. So this is where we advise the customer that we first negotiated on behalf of the customer. Like I mentioned, nothing with your banker is written in stone. Negotiate, especially on exchange rates and interest rates. So we negotiated and finalized the margin for this customer down to 25 paise. We did not convert the money and convert it back for the repayment right away. We only converted before the ECB came in. We found a good opportunity, which when I mentioned in terms of following the direction of the markets, we found an opportunity and hedged the repayment for the customer. Total savings just for that one day that we did those transactions of booking a forward contract as well as the negotiation on FX margins, we were in a position to save the customer over 30 lakh rupees in that single day of these two legs that were done. So here what we see is on one leg, the margin negotiation took place. The second, the timing of the markets, timing the direction of the currency markets, which is important, without which we would not have been able to book the forward contract for the repayment, where we got 20 paisa lower than what the original rate at which we converted the receivables. And because we were able to finalize that rate or fix that rate or freeze that rate through a forward booking, that also became of use to us. Getting to the second case study, an auto ancillary MSME with exports of USD 12 million per annum was availing CC for working capital at 10%. Export receivables were converted when received on cash basis. So basically, whenever the receivables came in, the customer purely converted the same. No forward booking, and whenever he wanted any funding, he took so in the form of CC for 12 million, up to 12 million of exports. Now, what would we do differently? I already explained the PC-INR arbitrage situation with the interest subvention scheme. So this is what was done after we came in. The company was eligible for interest subvention scheme by the government of India. We of course found their HS code and found that they were eligible. We advised them to shift to this particular strategy, whereby your interest cost came down from 10% to, sorry, this should be, there's a error from my side. This should be from 10% to 5%. minus 5%. So that should be 5%, not 4%. So the interest came down to 5%. We also booked a forward for the receivables that we are going to receive. Sorry, the mistake is above the, like I mentioned earlier also, the CC was at 9%. So from 9%, it went to minus 5%, 4%. And that forward premium that we received on the entire deal was again close to 4%, where mota moti it nullified the interest cost that the customer had to pay throughout the year that for the working capital facility that he availed from the bankers. He did pay from one side and receive from the other side, nullifying his cost. So again, using packing credit in INR with the interest subvention scheme as well as forward hedging was something that, utilizing these various solutions that banks are providing to us, it becomes a lot more helpful in terms of supporting our receivables, in terms of protecting our bottom lines, in terms of ensuring that we are making the most of the facilities available to us. Earlier, I discussed the MSMEs and the schemes and benefits available to MSMEs or that have been available is for the same reason. We have to take advantage. At this point, survival is paramount. So we have to take advantage of every opportunity, every benefit, every scheme that is available to us at this point in time. While the schemes for MSMEs and for others is an external one, a large number of these are internal, like our how we handle our receivables, how we handle our payables becomes important from an internal perspective. There is only so much you can do from an external perspective. Internal is more in your control and up to you in terms of how much you would like to negotiate and how you would like to go about streamlining your processes. And processes, when streamlined, are always helpful, A, in saving cost, which in today's time is important for everyone, and B, when growth does happen in the days to come. Slowly, but surely, when growth does happen at that point in time, your focus will always be more on that growth rather than putting systems in place. So always better to put the systems in place at a time when you have the opportunity to do so. So I'll just end with one last slide. Again, this is a slide that I'm very committed to. I'd just like to share this with you. Again, in every corporate, you hope for the best, but you have to prepare for the worst. Everything that we have discussed before this in terms of MSMEs, in terms of FX banking, interest rates, is to prepare ourselves externally, internally, take advantage of whatever we can to make the best of the situation at this point in time. Keep in mind that we are in it for the long haul. This is not going to stop anytime. I mean, this is not going to improve anytime soon. If we believe that it is going to be business as usual in a couple of months, that is not going to happen, which is why the topic, the new normal. So the first few points are to discuss how we cope with the situation. And the last few points that I mentioned are how we can contribute. Recalibrate your expectations. Recalibrate your expectations both internally and externally. Externally in terms of your budgets, in terms of what business is going to come in. Internally in terms of what your employees can do, what your requirements are. Be realistic. So that's basically what it means. Be realistic. The sooner we get realistic about where we really stand as an industry, as an organization, the faster it is that we can start turning things around and start looking at how we can improve. Prepare for a paradigm shift. Again, like I mentioned, like everyone is mentioning, the new normal. What is the new normal? I think every news anchor to every article that you've read of late or every webinar you've suggested talks to the new normal. Why the new normal is such an exceptional term is because no one knows. Everyone is going to have their own interpretation. But the one thing I can tell you about the new normal is that it is going to be a paradigm shift. It is going to be nothing similar to how things were before we went. Where they will be, how they will be, like I mentioned, is for each one to see. One thing is for sure, it's not going to be anywhere close to where it is today. So don't think it'll go. The changes are going to be minor. The changes are going to be extremely major. This could be a thing of worry, or it could be something where you look at it as an opportunity, or you look at it, if not an opportunity, at least look at how best you can come out of that without only stressing about it. So return to the drawing board, reinvent. I know again a lot of people say this. It's easier said than done, but the beauty of this point that I make is the fact that I have actually seen this right in front of my eyes at a micro level to a large industry like Mahindra and Mahindra. So we all know that Mahindra and Mahindra has started making ventilators, which, okay, in today's time and age is purely for the requirement of the country. And I would say that's quite a good gesture. But is that saying that after 6 months, I mean, COVID isn't going anywhere, let's face it. It's here for a couple of years till we find, till we come up with a vaccine, which is at least, with all the news that comes, filters in throughout the day, at least a few years away. So what is to say that 6 months later, Mahindra and Mahindra can't start a medical devices business, a vertical just to handle medical devices? They saw an opportunity. They were graceful enough to initially help start that opportunity to help the country, and after that, look at making it a business. I have seen so many companies working towards chemicals, turn towards sanitizers, turn towards companies that work towards making clothing and cloth related activities, working towards PPE kits. These are just terms that, I mean, these are just examples that come to mind right away. But if we don't pivot, I'm not saying it is necessary to pivot. Like I mentioned in the previous points of this slide, recalibrate expectations, be realistic about what your business looks like, what your product, the demand for your product looks like. If you believe the demand for your product very realistically does still look good, there's no reason to look at pivoting. You might have to pivot in terms of certain strategies and ideas to reach the end result, but that is the extent of your pivoting. For companies where you believe your product might not be, now I just mentioned a few slides back regarding the travel and tourism industry, regarding F&B. Now these are industries that will have to look at pivoting at the earliest. Now how that will be left to see who becomes the next billionaire. Even billionaires like Oyo, the founder of Oyo, Mr. Agarwal, is having to pivot to keep his business alive. So if billionaires are having to do it, we definitely do. So reinvent yourself, look at complementary businesses. Don't be cubbyhole saying this is what I do and I will not do anything else. The world's a large place. There's always an opportunity to add complementary services, or at least pivot and shift to a service that is as close to yours as possible, but has a demand in the immediate market. Now, flatten the sacrifice curve. Again, this is a term that I use very often in my webinars. We keep hearing about flattening the curve, flattening the COVID curve or the coronavirus curve. What it basically means is you're looking at ensuring that you reduce the number of cases as soon as possible. What I mean by saying flattening the sacrifice curve is that from an industry perspective, there are three sides to it. One is the government, one is the employer, and one is the employee. We all have to take responsibility for the situation we are in. No one is happy about it. No one would have wanted this to be the case, but we are here. So let's face that fact and look at how best we can ensure, by flattening the sacrifice curve, I mean how we can ensure that the sacrifices are made equally or close to equally amongst the three. The government at this stage, at least, has spoken about helping with PF, has spoken about certain benefits apart from that also for industry. That is the initial sacrifices they make. Whether it is enough, not enough is not what I'm discussing over here. I'm saying that is what you've seen from their side. Again, I repeat what I had said in previous slides about looking at what you can do externally and what you can do internally. So what the government is doing is external. What you can do internally is between employer and employee. Employers also will have to look at how they can sacrifice to some extent in terms of retention. it's a sacrifice today. Tomorrow, I'm very sure every employee here will agree that loyalty from an employer to an employee shown today will be loyalty that is definitely regarded in the same way in the days to come. A retained employee whom you have been loyal to as an employer will always regard you and will have higher regard for you than a new joinee or someone new that you appoint in the organization later. So that's a sacrifice you will, you will have to consider. At the same time, employees also, let me be honest, forget about appraisals, forget about bonuses. This year, the year after this is about survival. One side, I'm talking about why an employer should have reason to retain. Employees also have to understand that if they have to be retained, they have to make certain sacrifices. Look at those sacrifices. If you're loyal to your employer today, your employer will also look at being loyal to you at a future date. So this is how we can contribute from our end, whether we are an employee or an employer. And this is, of course, just a point from humble request from my side. All of us here, we are all part of corporates that have to do CSR. As that CSR, look at that CSR as an opportunity to contribute. Don't look at it simply as an obligation. Yes, it is an obligation, but now is the right time when that obligation can be of the most effect. Look at whether those CSR contributions that your company makes could be made towards organizations that are working towards fighting COVID-19. Look at whether they can be made towards not just organizations that are feeding the migrants. People, basically any problem that has arisen due to this COVID-19, let us look at whether we can help our money, which is anyway going to go out. And again, nothing towards any other CSR where the money is shared with other organizations. Just that this might help the entire COVID-19 situation be handled a lot better, possibly even faster. So that is it from my side. I would these are my details. You can reach out to me for any questions that I cannot answer at this point in time, or if I don't have the second, this seems to be showing some trouble. So this is my email ID. You can get in touch with me at any point in time. You can write to me, you can email me, or you can call me regarding the any doubts that you have. I will try and cover any doubts that are more generic in nature at this point in time. We have just about 15 minutes. I will try and answer what I can right now, and what I can't, I assure you, within 48 hours, you will get a email response from my side. So let's get into the question and answers. My humble request is, if there are any question and answers, whether those can be put in the Q&A section, because we have over 100 participants, and turning on mics and all that might become difficult because I'm moderating this by myself. So could we put it in the Q&A, and I'll answer them one by one based on that. So I'll start with one from an anonymous attendee. Can startup register for MSME? Yes, as part of micro, that can be done. Sridhar Rajpathak, are you sharing PPT? It is very useful. Thank you, Mr. Rajpathak. I will be sharing the PPT to all email IDs. I mean, you have registered email IDs from my end. I will be sharing the same. I think there are a few points in the chat. I would request those people to just ask the the questions in the Q&A because it's a little, I can curate it a little better that way. Mr. Sripath Kulkarni, my debtors are big, not bigger than our company, but we are in MSME. What is the tool with me for get receivables? My outstanding more than 5 crores. Shibaji, the question is still not clear to me over here. I would request if you can get in touch with me and explain it. I would be able to explain to you properly what it is that you're looking at. Sale minus Mr. Rajesh Bait, sale minus expenses equal to bottom line. We need demand, new orders, capacity to produce, no issues. That's good to hear, Mr. Bait, that capacity to produce is not an issue. I believe, I would like to believe that my presentation was keeping in mind that capacity is not a problem at this point in time for you guys. It's about liquidity that we had to look at. Mr. Ravindra Samant, can we get recording for this webinar? Yeah, Mr. Samant, it might be a big file, but I will try and see if I can get you the recording of this, of the same. Okay, Mr. Dharkar has already said that we will be uploading the video on YouTube, so I'll share the link with you once that is done. How can we get support from bank for supplies to government departments and government undertaking? Mr. Sanjay Sonamne has asked, how can we get support from banks for supplies to government departments and government undertaking? Again, Mr. Sonamne, this is slightly vague in terms of, are you looking at, for me to understand better, are you looking at you have business with the government, as in do you supply your goods to the government, to government departments and government undertaking, in which case also you can set up limits with your bank. That means that has no difference between who your customer is. In fact, with government departments and if it's a government undertaking, as long as it's not an EPC project, I don't see any banks having an issue, especially PSUs having no issues, would have no issues in terms of supporting you. This is it on this front. Demand. Notice answer. Yeah, let me send you a Mr. Bansal, 20% collateral free loan will be on the balance as on 28th Feb. Yes, as on the balance of 28th Feb, 20% of your outstanding will be provided as well. Mr. Virat Parekh, for cyclical forwarding, what are procedures to perform with bankers? That will depend, Mr. Parekh, whether you have the limits in place, whether the LEI documentation has been completed. Also, in terms of forward booking, it's a straightforward process. Like I mentioned, your limits, and when I say limits, these limits are separate for forward booking. These limits have to be set in place, and your banker will allow you to start hedging. There is no particular set product for cyclical hedging or cyclical forward booking. You just need to ensure that you do a certain set percentage of your forward booking per month on a regular basis for a set period. That system has to be put in place. It's more about the hygiene of the system more than your banker having an issue with it. Please do share the link with me too. Mr. Prabhakar Dori, we will definitely share the link with everyone who has attended today. Mr. Deepak, regarding hedging, currently USD rate is 76. Is it better now to go for hedging options for imports or wait till it reduces? Mr. Deepak, quite honestly, I would suggest, my personal view on this is I would recommend hedging at this point in time. Again, on the basis of cyclical and in tranches, look at hedging now. Our expectations are that the dollar will rise further in the days to come. There is still months of uncertainty ahead of us. The dollar is expected to rise, and in that scenario, you will be better off. Please don't look at hedging very long term. because you will have to incur import and forward premium for your imports. So I would suggest hedging for maybe 1 to maybe 2.5 months at the max. Mr. Siddesh Raikar, thanks as well. It was a nice. Thank you, Mr. Raikar. Thanks for attending. Rohit Vora, MSME in itself be classified in different sizes. Mr. CN Rohit Vora, MSME in itself be classified in different sizes and categories where the problems, challenges, and respective solutions could be different. Could you throw a few lights? Mr. Vora, again, I would love to speak to you and understand this point a little more. If you're suggesting that MSME should further be declassified into different aspects, then yes, there already is micro, medium, small scale and medium. But if you're saying the problem should be handled separately, I think at this point in time, the problems faced by the MSMEs in itself at all levels are the first time we've seen to the extent that it is there today. So definitely, yes. And if you do look at some of the benefits and the schemes, they are for certain sizes, they are for certain size companies. So that is already being considered. They just probably have not created separate verticals for the same. But there are a number of schemes that are for startups. There are schemes that are for existing small scale, and particularly only for medium scale. So there are already different schemes that are available for all of them. Satish Mundra, do banks, especially private banks, offer interest subvention to MSMEs by default, or do we have to negotiate for the same? Mr. Satish Mundra, the banks, at least in my experience, the private banks have been trying to use this as a sales tactic more than anything else to ensure that they got that business from you and you took the loan. But no, you don't have to negotiate. I won't say they give it to you by default. I won't say that you have to negotiate. I'll put it in the middle. You just have to ask for it. You have to check if your HS code falls due as per the customs HS code is due for the interest subvention scheme. And if it is, you just need to ask your banker. It's a one-page form that you need to give, a declaration stating that you fall under this particular scheme, and you can avail the interest subvention benefit. Without collateral is with bank or with non-banking like SIDBI, Mr. Shripad Kulkarni. Without collateral, SIDBI is also separate, sir, and with banks is also separate. So both are options. SIDBI, what we have discussed more of today, is more of investment in equity, investment in the shares of the company to become a partner to help take you to the next level, to help you grow to a point where you can publicly list your company. Mr. Siddesh Raikar, is natural hedging okay if we have exports as well as imports? Yes, natural hedging is perfectly fine. There's the only point where I discussed earlier regarding the import and export arbitrage is that we notice there is an opportunity, and this is this is not just an opportunity one-off. This is an opportunity that can be availed on a regular basis where you can make a little extra on that arbitrage of your imports and exports, rather because the natural hedge gives you zero benefit on either leg. We have so yeah, so I think I have answered a majority of the questions that have come my way. Anyone who has any other doubts, please once again feel free to share this. Share your, send me an email or give me a call for any other further clarity that you would like with these details, or if you have anything that's a lot more particular to your case, anything that I haven't answered so far over here, I will send you an email response within the next 48 hours. Anything else?